All right, maybe we'll start with a show of hands. At this late stage of the holiday season, who still has to start their holiday shopping?
Start? Wow, you haven't done anything? What's really sad, Paul, is I'll be honest, my kids are both grown, so you shrink considerably what and how much you give them. And we've done some, but like there's still a little bit left, and that's a problem for me in terms of getting it done. But we at least started.
I'll take any and all value-added suggestions at this point. You know it's bad when during the TV timeout on Sunday in Carolina, I'm asking Jen Hale, Fox sideline reporter, hey, Jen, any suggestions for the wife? You know, I mean, anyway.
I was wondering where you were going with that.
Problems.
Ask Jen Hale something.
Champagne problems around here. So let's see here. Dani, a little assessment. Your weekend, I'm guessing, was more notable in a lot of ways.
Yeah, my weekend was pretty great.
Let's just say it might have said 37 degrees or whatever it was in the box score. Unlike Santa Clara, it actually didn't feel that bad until the sun went down. So then it was most definitely 37 degrees when the sun fell below the stadium.
I was in the press box, Paul.
Yeah, so there you go. I'm just avoiding the real topic, and that was a loss that ended up knocking the Cardinals out of the playoffs. And if I'm seeing it correctly, Saturday night in L.A., the Rams can clinch a playoff spot.
They can.
Okay.
They can clinch. I don't know if they need any help.
From what I see, they do not. Because of tiebreakers or strength of schedule, they win, and they're in based on their comparison now to Seattle.
So they clinched the division then?
Correct.
Okay.
That's what I'm seeing.
I would have paid closer attention had it,
Forget LA.
Not been another team. But.
They clinch it even if Seattle beats Chicago?
Supposedly, based on the tiebreakers.
Yeah, see, the tiebreakers are going to be...
Whatever. Forget about Seattle. And, by the way, the Seahawks went 3-6 at home this year. Just saying.
See, that was so crushing. It was close, but the Vikings did exactly what everybody around here had hoped, which was they knocked off Seattle in Seattle.
Yeah. In fact, could you say if there's one moment that you want back from this season for the Arizona Cardinals, would it not be, forget Carolina, how about 19-6 you led at Minnesota late third quarter? To me, now that you're officially out of the playoff picture, if there's one moment, one stretch of one game that you regret the most or you want a do-over.
So a stretch of...
Yeah, just sort of a moment in time in the season. To me, it would be up 19-6 at Minnesota,
yes.
And all you had to do was bring it home in the fourth quarter. Right?
Yeah, I mean...
Well, the game at home the following week to the Seahawks would be a close second.
Yeah.
That was the turning point. We knew that going into the game, and it turned out to be a turning point in the season.
Although, unfortunately, with that Seahawks game, it never really felt like the Vikings game you felt like was within your grasp, and you just let it slip away.
And you know what? For everything that didn't happen in Carolina, when James Conner came out of the game, that to me was the only time where I got seriously concerned. Even down 20-3, you're thinking, all right, you know what? All you have to do is start feeding number 6, and that's what they did. And 9 of 12 plays, there was a stretch there where James Conner touched the ball, and the Cardinals quickly got 2 touchdowns. All of a sudden, it's 20-17 at the half. And thinking, all right, 3-point game, second half. This is right there to get out of Carolina with a win. And then early to mid third quarter, James Conner leaves the game. That's the moment in the game where I got seriously concerned that the Cardinals' chances of winning were in serious jeopardy. Until then,
there's no question whatsoever if James Conner doesn't get hurt, Cardinals win, right?
We agree on that.
I'll be honest, I've still felt when they went for it on 4th and 2 at their own 19 in overtime and they got it, I'm like, Gannon said this after the game about how he felt. I felt the exact same way. As soon as I got that 4th down, I'm like, oh, that's good. Now they're going to go right down and get the field goal now. That's the ball game right there. That Panthers couldn't stop them, had the ball first in overtime, couldn't do anything, had a chance to stop the Cardinals, couldn't do it on a 4th down deep in territory. They got no chance now.
But I guess that's probably where I diverge from you. What told you or what in your gut said, you know what, they're going to finish this drive? What told you they could sustain a drive at that point? Why were you so confident?
Well, because all they needed was a field goal. They had a kicker who could kick it from 55 yards. They just had what could have been a soul-crushing fourth down conversion. I mean, again, Panthers stopped them. The game, you don't even need to do anything but go kick the field goal. I felt like the Panthers had blown it. Did you ever get a chance to see the replay of Chad Ryland's field goal and then the TV's caught Bryce Young?
No.
Oh, Bryce Young looked defeated when Ryland's field goal went through the uprights. And then the Panthers didn't do anything on offense? Yeah. I thought they were going to finish it and escape. I don't feel like it was like clean ever. But that's one of those games where you think you could lose. Connor goes out. Should have been over. Should have been over after the interception.
Yep. Look, in terms of that locker room and that game afterwards, just the laments and the way guys tried to explain what didn't happen to start the game. I still don't have an explanation.
I don't think anybody does.
And, I mean, for everything that was hard to swallow at the end of the game, it's the beginning of the game to me that's hard to figure. It's hard to explain.
Well, especially when you hear Marvin Harrison say, usually I get a warning if I'm offside, and I checked with a guy and he didn't say anything. And when you go back and look, it's like, was he offside? And then the roughing the passer on Xavier Thomas, give and take. Now, I will say this. There was some other stuff they were doing. They just were like, it was like they're not paying attention. You can't have a flubbed handoff like that and give them the ball that deep. And more importantly, like really big picture with everything. And I know at some point we'll talk about Kyler or Marvin or whatever, and I know that's what everybody wants to talk about. The defense gave up 36 points and 260 yards rushing or whatever it was. You can't. Your offense, for all the things we might want to pick at, scored 30 points.
And Dani, we talked about this going into the game last week, did we not? We say, okay, there's the risk of looking at 3-win Carolina, much like you looked at 3-win New England. But the big difference is that Carolina offensive line. New England's offensive line was a disaster with a bunch of rookies and backups. Carolina's offensive line, especially the interior offensive line, is legit. With a guard by the name of Rob Hunt, who they kept running behind, the right guard, who's getting paid $20 million a year because he's a big-time free agent, and he's had a really good season.
It was sloppy. I was not in Carolina with you both. I did not make the trip this week, but rewatching the game was sloppy. And mentally, they did not seem on the same page. And that's frustrating because we had the same conversation when the team's mode of play was called out after a turning point game against Seattle that the Cardinals lost. You were fighting for your life. They knew going into that game, if you lose, you are eliminated from the playoffs. The offense had a ton of miscommunication with its quarterback and its wide receiver. You had the missed handoff. There were penalties on offense, multiple penalties on special teams. Overtime, there was a delay of game penalty on the offense. I did not think it was clean. Quarterback Kyler Murray looked very stressed under duress. And there's more times than not when he is under duress, he stays calm. He still looks fluid. He is making smart decisions. I did not think he was making good decisions when he was under pressure. And you look at the defense and they got gashed in the run. And it wasn't anything fancy. You know, the running backs for Carolina were not making these big moves. They weren't going outside the tackles. They were just running right through the gut of this Cardinals defense, which for the most part has been good against the run. They could not do anything to stop Carolina's rushing attack.
Yeah, and for everything about that very first flag of the game on the flea flicker, right? And Marvin Harrison Jr. supposedly, checked with the official and all that, and Kyler saying he wasn't even offsides, all told, and maybe the rookie got a hosed. Here's the thing: there were 7 more flags right after it.
Yes. By
early second quarter, so something was
amiss. By the first play of the second quarter. So first quarter plus 1 play, and you had 8 penalties.
So here's my theory. Half serious, half jackassery, but here we go.
Please clip that.
Did the players sit around and watch the college football playoffs on Saturday and see how non-competitive SMU was against Penn State or how overmatched Indiana was against Notre Dame and think, oh, yeah, it's going to be the same thing when we play 3-win Carolina. Because that ain't the way it works in the NFL.
Everybody insisted before and after the game that's not what happened.
Okay. All right. I take that back then. I
can only take them for their word. I mean, we haven't had this in a long time, but was it the early start?
Maybe. The stat was going in, the Cardinals had won 3 of their last 4, 1 o'clock Eastern start.
Okay. So that's probably not it.
You know, I have no idea. I will say this, and it's somewhat ironical, after the Cardinals got down and then they cut it to where did I write this down as I'm searching my notes here, the ridiculous notes. After it was 20-10, James Conner scores in the 6-yard touchdown run, and I put in a little side here, sideline alive, exclamation point. First time all game that it really had a pulse, the sideline. And after the game, I asked Garrett Williams what was the big adjustment to get back in the game, middle of the second quarter. He said, and I quote, "We just woke up."
Yeah. It's funny, I think sometimes players say that stuff and they're just kind of they're trying to do a cliche thing, but it feels so real, and maybe it is. I think to how that game started, and I think to how the Seattle, was it the road game? I mean, the road game, the whole game was bad, but I think the home game really, you were in a position that home game where you had to have it and you didn't start very well. And then you had to have yesterday, and you didn't start very well. That can't happen.
The 2 picks by Kyler at home, right?
Yeah.
Ernest Jones and then Kobe Bryant.
You have to have that game, and you don't look all that whatever to come out and do it.
You have to wonder at that point, what more could the coaching staff do? They're not out on the field.
Nope.
And given our interactions with head coach Jonathan Gannon, I cannot imagine that the process for him and his coaching staff and working with the players was any different than it was any other week the last almost 2 full seasons. And the coaching staff is not out there on the field. So while they can only do so much to prepare and work with the process, why are the players showing up in those big time moments on those big time games the way that they have twice now this season?
Yeah, in fact, I wrote down here in the notebook, too, from the sideline, it was 7-0 after the Chuba Hubbard touchdown run from 4 yards out, capping a 15-play, 70-yard drive, nearly 8 minutes, that Kyler and Budda had a long talk, which you don't see a whole bunch of. You don't see a whole bunch of, the defensive and offensive captains getting together. And then a little bit later in the middle of the first half, you had Budda calling a sideline meeting, the entire defense. You don't see a whole bunch of that. So the team captains tried to spring into action, right? A little CPR right there, right? Bring this team back to life on the sideline. And once again, they got into the game, and it was 20-17 at the half. And then all of a sudden, James Conner went out and Jonah Williams went out. I mean, there was a no vacancy sign on the blue medical tent for a while. I mean, it was like there was a line waiting to get in. You had Baron Browning, and oh my goodness.
You were already without Paris Johnson Jr. as
Yep.
your left tackle. You were without Mack Wilson Sr. as your inside linebacker. So to a certain extent, Trey Benson with an ankle. So to a certain extent, that does get demoralizing. However, every team deals with it. The Cardinals just haven't really dealt with it until now.
And here's the other thing. I thought Carolina did a really good job, and this was not a surprise. Cardinals anticipated Carolina putting J.C. Horn, their best cover guy by a mile, on Trey McBride. And he did check him most of the game. And what Trey ended up with? 3 catches on 4 targets. So
Yes,
he was neutralized
correct.
much of the game.
Yep.
So once again, we get back to the downfield passing attack, right? And in particular, the receivers. Craig Grialou did a deep dive and came up with the last time a Cardinals receiver led the team in receiving yards in a game, week 5. So, and look, Trey McBride's having a great season. And there are plenty of times where the Niners have been led by George Kittle or the Chiefs led by Travis Kelce. I get it. That's fine. But on the few times that he is taken away, like the first Seattle game where he didn't get a catch until middle of the third quarter, then ostensibly they're putting enough assets, double teaming and so forth, or their best cover guys on Trey, someone else has to win, right? You have to make that defense pay.
The math would tell you that would make sense, Paul, and it needs to be a give and take. If the receiving core is not showing up the way they need to, and you need to rely on your tight end, that's great. You need to rely on a running back out of the backfield as a check down a little more. That's fine. This has now become a consistent thing, though, is when you're having to rely on a tight end. You're having to rely on a running back to be your most consistent and reliable receiver. That needs to be adjusted, not even in the offseason, these last 2 games by this wide receivers room. You absolutely need more. You need to start winning your one-on-ones. There needs to be more chemistry, which is interesting because we spent so much of our offseason talking about how the receivers and their quarterback were spending time in the offseason. When Murray scrambles, it seems like nobody knows where to go. And that's obviously off script, and that can be tough. In the past, though, when Murray's on the move, he's been able to make plays out of nothing. And he can't always do that just on his own. The miscommunication with Marvin Harrison Jr. on the routes being run, there's too much of that this late in the season, and you need to be doing more. Does that mean you're out there after practice catching more balls from your quarterback? Maybe. Do they need to be watching film together if they're not already, or watching it differently, or talking about what's working or what's not? You still have 2 games to kind of get on the right track. You need way more than you are getting from your receivers than what you have been on a consistent basis, because they were not enough of a threat as they needed to be in Carolina.
I mean, I get it. When Christian Gonzalez breaks up a fade into the end zone, I get it. You can't rep that in practice, right? You're not going good against good, 100%. We're going for broke in the end zone. I mean, that's something you learn on the job as a receiver. But on the very first 3rd down at Carolina, when the ball goes deep and Marvin Harrison Jr. breaks off his route shallow,
which is like the 3rd time that's happened, right? 3rd or 4th time.
To Dani's point, that's something you can rep in practice.
Yep.
That's something by week 16 that needs to be dialed in, right?
And then late in the game when he went to Harrison on back-to-back plays, and is that a situation which were both incompletes of, okay, the second one, Harrison dropped the pass that he should have caught. The first one, does that need more zip on it? Does Harrison need to come back to the ball more? That is things that need to be communicated on. How does Murray like to throw the ball? How does the receiver like the ball on that route? And they just don't seem to be on the same page.
Yeah, if there's one box to check over these last 2 games, that would be it. It would be Kyler to Marvin Harrison Jr. and, maybe by design, get him a dozen targets in each of the next 2 games. Do anything and everything you can.
I mean, Paul,
try and fast track some more chemistry.
He's getting close to that. He had 8 targets in the game. More times than not, he is getting anywhere from 6 to 10 targets a game.
This isn't a question of him not having the ball thrown his way. It's a question of them not. And again, when we start talking about repping some of this stuff in practice, I mean, I had somebody suggest in the upcoming mailbag, and as we're recording this on a Monday, not a Tuesday, so forgive us for maybe our own little bit lack of energy. Usually we've had a little bit more time to decompress after Sunday. I had somebody suggest that, like, why don't they spend all this extra time on the field, Kyler and the wide receivers? Well, you can do that to a certain extent. There are time limits. Like you even if Kyler, and I guess you could go to some field outside the facility and do it really on your own, but like the NFLPA says you only have X amount of time on the practice field every day, and if we catch you breaking that, we're going to penalize you heavily, whether it's money or draft picks or loss of this or that. So it's not like you're like, hey, let's just spend an extra hour working on this a couple of days a week. You can't do it. You can't.
Well, here's the other thing you can't do. You can't replicate a team's defensive coverage that they're going to call in the moment.
Correct.
And a lot of these are read routes. So Kyler reads the defense and the coverage and these disguises that are all the rage, pre- and post-snap disguises, and Kyler reads it as, I'm going deep on a go ball.
Play, yeah.
And Marvin, the rookie, reads it differently. And so that's why I keep coming back to, and I know a lot of fans don't like this, I was recently asked the quarterback question, and I said, well, we don't know ultimately how much is on Kyler and how much is on the receivers. Just like we didn't know the first half of Carson Palmer's first season, when the coaching staff, Jonathan Gannon in particular, continues to talk about the details of the passing game. That's code for me in terms of, are the receivers in the right spot at the right time, reading it the same way the quarterback is?
I know fans want answers. You're not going to get answers. This staff and this group is more buttoned up perhaps than any staff that you and I have ever covered around here.
Yep.
And whatever the details are, we're not going to know. Nobody's going to know.
Don't play poker against these people. They have very good poker face. They're not going to show you your hand. It's just not going to happen.
To a certain extent, I do still believe big picture that Harrison can be a game changer for this team. It's taking longer than expected for a 4th overall pick to come in and make the impact that was expected of him, fair or not. So both things can be true, in understanding there is a grace period and knowing that that first real offseason in between year 1 and year 2 is really where a lot of growth and understanding of how to get better happens as the game continues to slow down. And at the same time, you can look and say, you're not getting enough. And it's not because he's not necessarily getting targets, whether it's miscommunication or still getting an understanding of how to read the defense or getting the game to slow down, whatever that might be, that's still a problem in the way that it was early on in the season.
People get mad over what his rookie season's been or what it could have been or whatever. Just don't miss me with the bust stuff. Like, you want to talk to me in a couple of years, we could talk in a couple of years. But come on, like, please stop.
Bust is like John Ross getting taken 7th overall. That's bust territory.
Yes, but we knew that. To me, we knew that after the fact. You might have had some hints early, but if you would have told me John Ross was a bust before his rookie season was over, I would have been like, miss me with that. Like, I don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
Now, everybody's going to parade around if it turned out that way, and this happens with any player. Oh, I told you early on. Yeah, okay, what about the times when you told me this and you didn't come back and bring that up again when you were wrong, you know?
And beyond all that, I think John Ross didn't even have 7 touchdown catches his entire NFL career, much less his rookie season. All right, here's something intriguing Jay Feely has said on air more than once. What the Cardinals need to unlock Marvin Harrison Jr. is a speed receiver, is someone to take the top off. If the Cardinals could, go into the cold tub time machine back to when they drafted John Brown in the 3rd round, Mr. 4.28, and put that kind of receiver out there, do you think because Marvin's not a burner and maybe needs some more room to operate underneath on the 1st and 2nd levels, do you get a guy who can really stretch a defense to the 3rd level? I don't know. Just speculation. How far do you think that would have gone this year if you had that guy?
I love that idea. You have similar body types in Harrison and Michael Wilson right now. I would like to see Harrison get some more work across the middle. You've got a small receiver who's fast in Greg Dortch. However, he's not going to be your outside deep threat. I love that idea of getting a speedy receiver. If it had worked out health-wise and what this team wanted, somebody like a Hollywood Brown, of what you were expecting when that trade was made to bring Brown to Arizona.
I like the idea of a speed receiver. I think to even frame, and it would help Marvin Harrison, it would help Michael Wilson, to frame it anywhere close to that's what would unlock him. I have an issue with it. I think there's some other things that need to improve.
I agree. It would help, but I think it would be like 3rd or 4th on the list of what is needed right here, right now.
And I would also say, do I think there's a chance they would look for that speed receiver? Very much so. There's a chance. I would say that even if they didn't find that guy for next year, there's still a good chance Marvin Harrison can improve to the point where you're like, oh, this guy is pretty damn good.
With reason, we're talking a lot on Harrison. However, the struggles offensively, not just in Carolina, big picture this season, they fall more than just on your rookie receiver and even just on your quarterback. Just this offense as a whole hasn't been consistent on a week-to-week basis, whether that's the run game. Well, that's not true. The run game has been consistent when you've had Connor. The passing game hasn't been consistent. You haven't had games where you were having great passing and rushing attacks at the same time. Ball security has also been a surprise problem because that hasn't really...
Lately.
Yeah. No. Do you know that there has not been a single game this season in which the Cardinals haven't had an interception or a fumble? Oh. Now, there's been 3 games where on a fumble they didn't lose possession and they recovered it. There has not been a single game the Cardinals have not put the ball at risk at very least, and at most turn the ball over.
It's interesting. I did not quite realize that. Yeah, that's
Dani bringing the knowledge.
Yeah. By the way, John Brown, for extra points and Wise Guy, his alma mater, where did John Brown go to college?
Pittsburgh? Wasn't it Pittsburgh?
Doesn't count. I didn't ask the question, Paul.
Darren hasn't quite finished his answer.
Pittsburgh State?
There you go. How about that?
That's a college?
Yeah.
Yeah. Kansas?
Kansas.
The applause caught me off guard.
You know why it was his nickname Smoke, right?
It didn't have to do with the speed?
No, which I thought it did. And I went up one day and I said, "Hey, John, I said I think I know the answer, but I'm like, how did you get the nickname Smoke?" He said, "When I was born, and my grandmother said about his skin color, he looks like smoke."
I never knew that.
It literally, now his own family gave it to him, but like I thought it had to do with speed, and no.
Well, as long as we have some useless trivia knowledge, I guess.
That wasn't one of the questions today, was it, Omo?
Well, yeah.
Just checking.
There's a finite amount of correct answers in, Darren, so that's our segue into Wise Guy Trivia.
It's time for The Wise Guy, the world's fastest growing Cardinals quiz show. The stakes are low, the winner gets absolutely nothing. Here's your hostess with a mostess, Dani Sureck.
Darren is up 13-2 on Paul this season. So, Paul, let's end on a high note.
Let's not talk
start to build momentum.
You keep going the ghost of Christmas past. I'm all about the ghost of Christmas present. Let's go.
Well, speaking of high note, Dani picked up another game on you, Paul, in the picks. She's now just 6 games behind you with 2 weeks to go. It's closing in.
Okay, putting the bah humbug. Here we go.
I'm 5 games ahead of Paul right now.
Darren, would you like to?
I'm gonna take the first question. I'm going 1. I'm going right out of the box. Number 1. Here we go.
This Cardinals draft pick starred for the Rams in their 1999 NFC Championship win over the Buccaneers.
Wait a minute. Why does Darren get to pick first, by the way? Is it because winners? Is that what it is?
Paul, is this your first week playing Wise Guy?
I mean, is this pickup basketball?
He's won 13 times, which means 13 times he has decided to answer first or give you the first question.
I will give you this, Paul.
I'm trying to distract him.
If this is
trying
a
to distract
shtick,
him.
You're really good because it sounds like you don't know every time.
I'm trying to throw him off his game. It's like a batter stepping out.
I'm
stepping out of the batter's box a little bit.
I got to reel you both back in.
All right, here we go. Let's go.
That's true.
Yeah.
Hostess with a mostess.
This Cardinals draft pick starred for the Rams in their 1999 NFC Championship win over the Buccaneers. He had 6 catches for 100 yards, including the game-winning touchdown with 4:44 to play.
Would that be Ricky Ticky Tavi Prohl?
That sure would be. 1990 third-round pick out of Wake Forest.
Speaking of guys who could run, speaking of third-round receivers who could run, Ricky Prohl.
He could.
He could run. Okay.
And then also his son made it into like the early finals of American Idol. I just thought I'd mention that because my wife and I were watching it.
Paul, pick a question.
There better not be any questions about reality TV or I'm walking. I'm just telling you that right now. Number 2.
Oh, my God. I want to see that happen now.
Okay, so it's not a sitcom.
You think you've seen Paulie protest? Watch me walk out that door.
But here we go. Similar pace here. In 1985, the Chicago Bears dropped their hit song, The Super Bowl Shuffle. Shortly thereafter, several Los Angeles Rams players, including Eric Dickerson and Jackie Slater, countered with this cringeworthy music video of their own.
Okay. This has been played on the pregame show for many years.
Because Omo loves it.
Although not recently. Ram it.
That is correct. Way to go, Paul.
That's excellent. Excellent.
Okay, we're hanging in. At halftime.
1-1.
At halftime, we're deadlocked. Here we go.
What do I got? 2 and 4?
You got 3 and 4.
3 and 4.
I'll do 3.
We'll just go in order here.
Okay. The Rams currently play at SoFi Stadium. Name the 4 previous venues they called home dating back to 1994, the final year of their first stint in Los Angeles. Hint, the Rams used 2 venues in St. Louis.
Okay. We're
tough
going to
one.
go with the Coliseum in L.A. We're going to go with the Edward Jones Dome. And then I guess I'm going to cross my fingers and go with Busch Stadium.
That's 3. You need 4.
Oh, that's true. Coliseum, Busch Stadium, Edward Jones Dome, and the Rose Bowl?
Paul, the opportunity to steal, the opportunity of a lifetime.
What else is actually in L.A.? I'm going to go with that soccer stadium the Chargers played in for a couple of years.
I don't know what that would have been called. The answer you were both looking for is Anaheim Stadium.
The Big A. Come on. Oh, my goodness.
Damn it.
Well, here's the good news, Paul.
Oh, yeah.
You get this
you're on the
correct.
precipice.
Okay, here we go.
You're on the
Walk
precipice.
away with a win.
Here we go. See if I can be like Chad Ryland in the clutch.
look,
Come through. Here we go.
By the way,
this one might be tough for you.
That 58, I mean,
Oh.
when I watched the replay, he looked like he barely hit it. Like, it took no effort from him to drill it that would have been good from like 60 yards.
And by the way, Kyler's pick was towards the same end zone, right? There's a reason Kyler's ball fluttered in the air, in addition to trying to
There's low
throw
wind.
it an absurd amount of length while you're running straight out of bounds. I mean, that was but then there was also wind coming. For him, I'm standing on the sideline, I'm like, Chad, I love you, but there's, oh my goodness, he made it because the wind was coming in from that side as well. Yeah.
Big props to Chad. Sorry, didn't mean to. I didn't want to break your concentration, Paul.
Here we go, Paul.
We're all rooting for you, Paul.
Yeah.
Are you locked in? Are you ready?
No
This is a
pressure.
big moment for you.
No pressure.
In this moment, my 2-13 record just came to mind, so it's probably not a good signal. But let's go.
Here we go.
Let's go. Persevere.
On September 14th of this year, SoFi Stadium hosted a concert featuring bands fronted by musicians Billy Joe Armstrong and Billy Corgan. Name each frontman's band.
What does this have to do with anything?
SoFi
They played at
Stadium.
SoFi Stadium.
concert list now? Oh my goodness. Well, one is Smashing Pumpkins. What were the 2 names again? Billy Corgan and
Billy Joe Armstrong.
Billy Joe Armstrong. Okay, sounds like a NASCAR driver. Let's see here. Since I hate them with a passion and I refuse to learn their names, the Red Hot Chili Peppers, because I know they're LA.
It's not a bad guess.
Dang.
We're going to go with Smashing Pumpkins and Green Day.
Correct, but how do you know that?
How do I know what?
I would not know the names of the
I actually have a
frontman
handful
a
of
band.
Smashing Pumpkins and Green Day songs on my phone right now.
How about that? Yeah, let's give Elmo a little grace here since we play the Rams twice. So when getting creative for these questions and
Okay.
looking at SoFi Stadium, okay,
I'm
we
just
get a
disappointed I
tiebreaker
didn't get the Ram It one. Why do we get a tiebreaker?
because you stole.
Yeah,
so you got the point.
I got 2 right, and he got 1 right, and there was.
Oh, you're right. Yep, you're right. Okay, Darren wins.
It's not Darren's role to make corrections on the fly. When there's a
You know what, Paul? Maybe this is the week you can convince Darren to do a winner-take-all tiebreaker.
when there's a mathematical error at the end that's going to benefit thy opponent.
Okay,
you're
don't
not
turn this
allowed.
on me. I am always rooting for you. I am always on your side.
Let's do a winner-take-all tiebreaker. What the hell?
Yeah.
Wow.
All right, Darren's in the giving
Your dream
spirit.
come true, Paul.
Here we go.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Here we go. Wow, I'm nervous for this. In his career, Kurt Warner was 7-2 against the Rams. How many touchdown passes did Warner throw in those 9 games?
Okay. 9 games, touchdown passes. All right. Here we go.
Hang on, Darren is still writing. Okay, he's shown me his answer, Paul. So what's your guess?
Okay, and I have a little theorem here based on how bad the Rams' defense was over those years and how 24.
21.
The correct answer is 15. So Darren wins.
15.
It was funny. I was going to say 15, and I'm like, that's too low, right?
What was he running the triple option? What was
Should
going on?
we
Did I
should
miss
we
that?
look? Maybe we should have a discussion where next year, instead of winner gets absolutely nothing, we get a trophy like the Pop-Tart Bowl trophy. That bowl went absolutely crazy and viral last year with the Pop-Tart mascot, and then he disappeared and essentially was eaten. Did you see the trophy for this year's Pop-Tart Bowl? It is a legitimate toaster in the trophy. It's incredible. So you can pop a Pop-Tart in the trophy.
See, this is what we have a boss. His name is Surf, who's always talking about if you're not always trying to improve, you're just getting worse. The Pop-Tart Bowl is all about always getting better. I mean, I didn't think they could top what they did last year, and now they're adding a toaster in there. And by the way, Pop-Tarts are horribly underrated, and yet I know I can't eat them very often.
What's your favorite flavor?
I would probably be either a frosted blueberry or brown sugar cinnamon.
Oh, those are good. What about the strawberry? That's a classic.
It's classic, and certainly I wouldn't turn it down, but
Okay.
I bet you Paul has never eaten a Pop-Tart in his life.
I'm thinking the same thing. He's definitely never toasted one either.
First off, there is no next year of Wise Guy Trivia, just to let you know. And I'm coming all the way back to the beginning. And number two, this should set off a craze of innovative trophies given out in sports. Like,
That would be fun.
That would be good. Like a trophy that doubles as a blender. I mean, there are different things, right?
Well, it has to make sense.
Like
How would a blender trophy make
I don't
sense?
know, the Jack Daniels Bowl or something like that, right? There's some of these liquor brands.
I
Oh, that
like
could
that
be like
idea.
that
I
could
like
become
that
like an
idea.
ice luge or something.
Yeah, you have like a mixed drink type deal,
We need to stop giving these suggestions on air because someone could listen.
I mean, I embrace the Pop-Tart Bowl because I like the Pop-Tarts. I can't handle the Duke's Mayo Bowl because we don't need to talk about exactly what happens there.
I think that's the downfall of Will Levis would be the whole Mayo thing,
Yeah,
right?
that probably didn't help him.
Yeah, that didn't
I guess
help,
if there were some sort of smoothie bowl, the blender would work.
Sure. There you go. Absolutely. I mean, years ago, my alma mater had the pleasure and privilege of playing in the Cheez-It Bowl here locally downtown.
Yum.
So, there's got I think the trophy was a massive Cheez-It, if I'm not sure. I mean,
Very possible.
could have been, yeah.
Now, we
Wasn't
could
there
talk for a long time about Cheez-It flavors that we like.
I used to
Oh, that's
compare,
also good.
Larry Fitzgerald used to have a diamond earring, square. I used to compare it to the size of a Cheeto. I used to say to Larry, what's bigger?
Cheez-It, you mean?
Cheez-It, I mean, yeah. What was bigger? Was it the Cheez-It or that diamond earring, that square diamond earring?
Was it
he had?
real?
Oh, it was real.
Because I've told the Amari Stoudemire story on this, right?
It was real and it was spectacular, Darren.
I can't imagine Larry being so ostentatious.
Yeah. Anyway, okay. Let's see here. Any final thoughts on? We're going to get a thought on Budda Baker. Speaking of being able to afford diamond earrings,
Well,
Budda Baker. That's my segue.
Number one, we're disappointed that he decided to agree to his contract literally 3 hours after we finished taping last week.
It's true. Yeah. So, all right. Give me some thoughts. Give me some reaction.
I like the fact that this team is, I mean, when you looked at all they still have a bunch of guys who contracts are up, but I like how they, with Zaven Collins and Yelda Froholt and James Conner and Budda Baker, they settled down some very key decisions that they were going to have to make going into the offseason. And you have a little bit more of a balance going into the offseason in terms of what it's going to look like. I love that.
You've got the foundation for consistency, the heart and soul of the offense, and James Conner, the heart and soul of the defense, and Budda Baker have now been locked up for the next few years. That says that this front office likes the foundation that has been set by those players and how it branches out to those around them. I also like that this front office is saying, if we think you're a key player and you're going to have an important role in the future of this team in helping us win, and you don't have to test free agency because we know we know that we want you here, they're not going to let him test free agency. Now, on the other side, that does say a lot about what really is going on behind closed doors in the locker room for Conner and Baker to not even want to go and see what they could get in the market. Now, the agents, they're working and they have an idea to know that they're getting something comparable. The fact that two of your star players knew they wanted to stay here before the season ends says a lot about the culture and what is really going on, and the fact that those players feel like they have a chance to win here in Arizona.
Only thing I would add would be, and that's all accurate, what you guys just said, but in addition to that, it's what they do that most fans never see. It's the impact they have in the locker room, impact they have off the field.
Yes.
impact they have in particular with young guys. And as evidence over the last month and a half, just on the Big Red Rage, the way guys rave about Budda Baker. We've had Starling Thomas. We've had Max Melton. We've had Rabbit. Darius Robinson last week. Darius Robinson on his own, just talking about Budda Baker, building on that comment, maybe the best defensive player I've ever seen, right? And how it's just so remarkable.
He gushes over Budda.
He does. And he said what people don't realize, this is Darius building on it with more, maybe he's going to be a future analyst when he's done. I don't know. So what people don't realize is how hard it is to bring ball carriers down in the NFL. And he makes it look so easy. Not only does he have all those tackles, he doesn't have very many missed tackles. Now, he did have one in Carolina, but that he was coming at a strange angle from a very distant place on the field. Darius talks about how difficult it is, especially when he's far from the biggest guy on the field, and he's able to bring down these 230-pound running backs like it's nothing.
I would also, and I don't want to go third rail here on this topic or on this subject, especially of Budda, but it is kind of amazing. I mean, this dude asked for a trade last year. Now, again, they got that fixed up pretty well, and they got it figured out with a new regime and all that stuff. But the way he asked for a trade, and yet it got worked out, and it didn't get worked out the way he wanted it to at the time, and yet he played at an incredibly high level until they got to this contract. I look back and look, Patrick Peterson had a fantastic career in Arizona, but he asked for a trade, and it never was the same. It didn't feel like after that happened.
This shows that high-level impact can be rewarded, and it has the possibility to have a trickle-down effect to a lot of other players, a lot of young players in that locker room of being comfortable signing before hitting free agency and testing the market if you feel like this is the place for you and you are feeling valued. And I think that this, when you're looking at Connor and Baker specifically getting contract extensions before this season even ends, it has the real possibility to have a really positive trickle-down effect of players wanting to play hard in those contract years, wanting to play hard if, for example, they had previously asked for a trade, and that if you go out there and you really do make an impact, you can get rewarded here.
I mean, when you have a top 5 youngest roster in the NFL and all those guys are following James Conner and Budda Baker, it just enhances their value so far beyond the box score that people don't quite realize just the significant impact they're having in the entire locker room.
And on a quick footnote with that, when we go into this offseason and everybody's speculating over what free agents they might sign, especially if it's a high-dollar free agent, if that happens, we're not going to know because we don't know these guys, especially the ones that aren't here. But you need to keep in mind, and we've said it a bunch of times, the player might be really, really good, and he might have really, really good statistics, and it might, in a name, feel like that guy's perfect for what they're looking for. But you don't know, and they're going to be doing their due diligence. If they're going to spend money, they want it on guys like Budda Baker and James Conner. And if they get some kind of intel somewhere along the way that guy that we're talking about, whoever it might be, isn't that guy, they're not going to sign him. And there might be times when the fans are left scratching their heads like, why aren't they chasing player X? We're not going to know for sure, but I would consider that.
And you know what?
Is that a possibility of why they're not?
To reinforce and bolster that point, go back to the end of the preseason. There was a lot of speculation. The Cardinals need to add a pass rusher. There are some guys out there. Don't think the Cardinals didn't do their homework.
Yeah.
There's a reason they didn't sign the guys that were on the market, and there's a reason those guys were on the market, and a lot of other teams didn't sign those guys. So to Darren's point, and it is amazing, we all know this, interviewing all these guys on different platforms, different shows, you can start to see the similarities in mindset and the player and the sort of person that they're targeting. Forget the player, the sort of person they're targeting. And by the way, did you notice during Budda Baker's press conference, he mentioned on mic that after he'd asked for the trade, would have been the timeline or so, he'd never used the word trade, but he said he went out to lunch with JG and Monty Ossenfort. And so that sounds like it was instrumental. He wanted to know, okay, what's the plan? He wanted to know, can I believe in these guys? Do they have the ability? He's on his 4th coaching staff. Of course he might be a little skeptical, right? Like, okay, well, who exactly am I going to be playing for and working for? So I get it. Sort of like the LA Rams. Last question, week 2 till now. Do you even watch the film from week 2 against that LA Rams team? Is it even the same team? Does it have any meaning or application to this matchup whatsoever?
You're going to go back and you're going to watch it, but you're going to want to look and see what this Rams team looks like now, because that's very different than week 2. They're a lot more healthy. They're moving the chains a lot better. They are more efficient. It seems I can't imagine that the dominating performance the Cardinals had against LA in week 2 and the things that worked against LA, both offensively and defensively, are going to be the exact same game plan to face them now in week 17.
For example, whatever coverage plan they used against Marvin Harrison Jr. in week 2, I'm guessing they don't duplicate that this week.
The Rams were without Puka Nacua. Cooper Kupp left before half, so and the offensive line was pretty banged up for LA. Things are going to look different.
Yeah, no doubt. So
a lot different.
Okay.
Did you guys see on Instagram? Because I doubt you did. It appears that defensive lineman.
I feel like that was a stray there.
I don't know that it was a stray. It was pretty clear where I was aiming.
Yeah. No, it was a direct hit. It wasn't a stray. That was
okay,
intended.
so tell me if I'm right or wrong. Did you guys see that on Instagram? No. It appeared that defensive lineman Justin Jones gifted the big D lineman some customized Louis Vuitton luggage.
Did not see that. No.
I did not see that.
I just didn't know if you guys needed inspiration for my gift next week.
I see.
So
really?
That would be fine with me. I'm really not picky.
That's
well, we're really not that rich.
Well,
the Justin Jones one D lineman. I mean, like, what was the motivation or what compelled him to gift all the other D linemen?
Maybe he's just a good dude.
Okay.
It was funny. I was thinking about Justin Jones and Bilal Nichols this morning, and I'm like, when we talk about what this team's going to look like, and we're going to forget about these 2 veteran defensive linemen that'll be back next year that have basically disappeared from our thought process because we don't see them anymore.
They were only your starting defensive tackles coming out of camp.
I know.
Think about that. Okay. All right. I guess that'll do it. I wish I had some sort of poignant, holiday wishes of some sort. It's sort of like when it comes around to saying grace at the Christmas dinner table. You got to figure it out. You can't just be caught in the moment.
How old are your kids now?
Don't worry about
what is Cheeto getting?
That's, oh my goodness, that is, yeah.
Oh, no,
you know what?
You hit a sore spot.
You know what? I think Cheeto, my dog, has more shopping done right now than yours truly. So we're going to have to do something about that. Exit stage left here on Cardinals Underground, brought to you by Pacific Office Automation.